And I'd like to call to order this meeting of the Woodstock Inland Wetlands and Watercourses Agency, the meeting of Monday, June 2nd, 2025 at 7:05 p.m. We will start with a roll call. Val, you're muted.
Are we all muted? Is that?
Marla Butts.
No,
Stuart Peasley.
Okay.
Kathy,
Kathy Barrick, I'm here.
okay, and Bill Rowinski. Mark Parker is currently not here, but perhaps he'll join us along the way. And we have Dottie Durst recording for us, recording secretary this evening. Is that a temporary assignment, Dottie? Okay, we can catch up with her later.
She's muted.
Yeah. Actions on, we have no alternates to appoint. Action on minutes of previous meeting.
Mr.
Regular
Chairman,
meeting of, yes,
excuse
sir.
me, please,
Yes,
this is
ma'am.
Dottie. I did finally remember how to unmute. Yes, I am here to
Okay.
fill in for you, and good evening to everyone.
Yep, thank you very much. All right, action on minutes of the previous meeting.
I only found one error so far. Page
Okay.
4, item E, subparagraph I, 2, 3, third line down. It says drop slop and a portion of the entrance. I think it should say drop slope. There needs to be an E at the end. That's on page 4, item E.
Yep. The only thing I would add is the public present, add Kathleen Barrick, because she was there at that meeting also.
And Mr. Chair, Mark Parker is joining the meeting.
Okay. Are there any other? Okay, on page 3, the new applications, if you can clarify for me. We tabled that application for the Sherman Timber Harvest. And could you refresh my memory? What was the reason we did that? Was it because there was not a representative there? Or was there some other reason?
Stuart Peasley, yeah, I think that's correct. He was not available at the meeting.
Okay.
And
Hi,
he,
Mark, can you hear us?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. And Mark Parker joins the meeting at 7:09 p.m. Go ahead, Dan.
I did send the agenda to the applicant last week, and I got an auto reply email. I believe he's probably on vacation through the 8th of this month. So I don't know if we're going to see him here.
Okay. Mark, we're reviewing the minutes. Do you have any corrections that you would like to make?
No,
Anybody else have any corrections?
So I'll move to accept the minutes of the May 5th, 2025 Inland Wetlands and Watercourses Agency meeting with 2 corrections. Under roll call, see public presence, add Kathy Barak. And on page 4, page 4, item E, I, third line down, change drop slop and to drop slope and add an E after the word slop. So it becomes slope.
Anybody else?
Don't know what the meeting minutes from approving the meeting minutes.
Do we have a second? Do we have a
Nobody's gonna
second?
second?
I'll second Stuart Peasley.
Okay, we have a motion from Marla Butts, and seconded by Stuart Peasley to approve the minutes of the May 5th, 2025 Inland Wetlands and Watercourses Agency, the regular meeting, with the two corrections or additions noted. Is there any further discussion? All those favors signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Motion is passed unanimously. Okay, moving on to citizens' comments. This is a portion of the meeting where we allow comments from citizens. Typically, something that is not related to any item on the agenda. Is there anyone who would like to comment or question something this evening? Okay, not hearing anything, we'll move on to pending applications. 1490 Route 198, application 04-25-15, Austin Harmon, All Forest Products, Inc. for Bruce Sherman Timber Harvest. So it looks like we don't have a representative this evening also.
Yeah, I see that the wetlands crossings that they had were all gonna be corduroy roads or mats, which I believe will probably be acceptable for those small water courses. There were a lot of trails that were through there that they crossed one of the crossings in the northern part. I couldn't understand why they were crossing it twice, why they couldn't get access, but that was the only question I had, but it's pretty typical. I mean, the kind of proposed work. So I really don't have a problem with the application. I would have liked to have had him describe the project. But
Marla, where does it show the detail for the crossing?
they don't show a detail. Those are standard corduroy roads and mats.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the forestry has I believe a brochure that has, or some kind of documentation that has it in there as to what a corduroy road or corduroy crossing or wood mats would look like. We haven't
So
had any problems
That's
so far.
unclear.
Yeah, for me, that's pretty standard stuff that they'd use. So,
Okay.
and the only thing that you could potentially have is if we had a big storm and they washed out, and caused some erosion, but that's like an unusual event. And I'm not sure, did they say when they were going to do this harvest in the application?
August, I think.
Which will be low flow period of time, and you could have thunderstorms, but the intermittent water courses will probably be dried up. I mean, I don't think there's any major water courses. Mark, do you know this area at all?
Mm,
Well, they say August 1st to the end of the year.
I don't think so.
No. Okay.
I
Well,
believe,
we can table it again
believe-
until next month. I mean,
Bill Rowinski, I believe that a lot of that is relatively flat or very shallow slope. Towards the back, I'm not familiar with what it would look like, but next to the road, it's relatively flat.
Well, I have no objection doing it either way. Because since this is an application for a use permitted as of right, there's no timeline on it for us in the statute, so we could table it to next month there's no problem in doing that.
I'm curious, just a couple questions about the landings and, you know, the similarity to the one on Route 169 and the ones that are in the forest. What's the difference?
So you would,
Bill Rowinski, the one on 169, I believe, is a site of a barn that was taken down.
And the crossing is right at a pond, is that, or just wetlands area?
It's wetlands area.
yeah, I don't know where he got his wetlands delineations. Those aren't really
So
accurate.
the landing then at the road is just for truck, and the landings on the interior of the lot are just for the harvesting equipment?
Yeah, he's got 4 landings.
Yeah,
So, but I don't know how he did his wetlands delineation. It doesn't match anything that I've seen. So that would be the only question that I would have. But he does say in there that, if I recall, was he doing cutting in wetlands too? Yeah, he's got removal of trees in wetlands also. So, the time that he would want to do that would be during low flow, when August is the time to do that.
yeah.
But the delineation that he's got on that drawing is not correct according to the soils maps and some of the topography when I looked at it last month. I would have no objection to tabling it. Do you feel comfortable, Stu?
I think tabling is fine. Yeah, we just think it'd be good to have the clarity.
So after the last meeting, he had reached out, kind of disappointed that it was tabled, and wondered if the commission had any specific questions that he would be addressing. And I told him they just kind of wanted to ask him some questions. Do you guys have any specific questions I could forward, or?
Yeah, like how did he determine the wetlands the wetlands identification? It doesn't seem to match anything that I've been able to uncover. I'm not sure if he was using the National Wetlands Inventory, or was he wasn't using the soils maps, because the soils maps show much more extensive wetlands than what he shows on his drawing, which are those areas that are blue, light blue.
Yeah,
Now that I've looked at this more closely and oriented myself, this piece of property is in higher elevations.
Mhm.
If you continue north, it drops down, and there's like a wetland area, and that's the Muddy Brook, the upper reaches of the Muddy Brook,
Mhm.
which then eventually works its way up to Pond Factory or Factory Pond. Um, so it's if there is wetlands or whatever in these pockets, they're all like within like glacial, cutouts in the hillside. So
Mhm.
it's not like you're what we normally would think of a low-lying flat wetland. I think they're
True.
probably wetland pockets,
Yeah.
because I'd have to look at a topo map, but I'm pretty sure this whole piece of property is up kind of on the hill, as you're coming up. When you pass the Sherman Dairy Farm, if you're coming from Southbridge into Woodstock and you drop down south, that's where you see there's a field on the left and there's a field on the right, and there's all wetlands down in there. And then it climbs up, and all that property is up kind of on a glacial rocky hillside. So,
Yeah, what's on the screen now that Dan has shared has the
oh,
topo in very light
Yeah.
underneath the soils map.
okay, yeah,
The wetland soils are the several shades of blue, the 3 different shades of blue.
right, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and let's see. Now,
So you feel,
where are the
yes.
proposed crossings here? Yeah, personally, I think it's a sufficient plan. Um,
Okay.
Yeah,
I don't care one way or another, to be honest with you. Since they're doing it during low flow period of time.
I'd be in favor of approving this.
Why
As
don't
the
you
new
make-
person, can I ask a question?
Of course.
Are they planning on
Kathy.
taking all of the trees down here? Is this what did they buy this to get timber or? I guess I'm
No, the
just
Sherman family has owned a lot of that land up around there, so I'm pretty sure they've owned it for a while.
Okay, so they're just taking the timber to either sell or,
Right.
okay.
So
If
it,
you
the-
look at the second page,
Mhm.
timber harvest objective at the top,
Oh, yeah,
that tells you what it,
okay.
Yep,
Oh,
so
that's good. Yep.
it's forestry management. They're trying to make it a healthier stand and also generate some income.
Okay, so they're probably
Yeah.
not gonna clear cut it. They're probably gonna take
Correct.
in between or, okay.
Removal of mostly poor formed low-grade white pine from old field areas, as well as diseased and declining individuals. Salvage of ash trees. As you all know, the
Oh, brother.
emerald ash borer has done a number on the ash trees in Connecticut, and so
Yeah.
there's probably some damaged trees there that they need to take out. So
Yep, I would guess.
So Mark, why don't you make a motion?
I
I
make a
shouldn't be-
motion that we approve timber harvest application 04-25-15.
I'll second the motion.
okay, we have a motion by Mark Parker and seconded by Marla Butts to approve timber harvest application number 04-25-15, 1490 Route 169, Austin Harmon, Hull Forest Products, Inc. for Bruce Sherman. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 I,
Anybody opposed? The motion passes unanimously. Moving on to our next one, application 04-25-20, 23 Hiawatha Heights, Wesley Smith and Susan McMillan. Request to repair septic and shoreline retaining wall.
So we have additional documentation that Wes submitted, and you'll find that on the meeting page. And I'll call that up right now. So last month we had use permitted as a right request for the replacement of septic and the shoreline repair. They should have been on different applications since the shoreline repair is work in the water and would require an individual permit. But Wes would like to get his septic done or get the wall done before placing the septic so that he doesn't have to transport heavy equipment over the septic to eventually do the wall. So Wes provided more information that we would typically request for an individual permit. And he also gave a summary of his credentials to prepare these types of plans. We'll put up the new application right now. I feel, and I'm kind of wondering how the commission would like to process this administratively. The wall should be its individual application, but we did receive this kind of request a month ago. No?
The application came in today, according
Yeah.
to what you've got. So
Yeah.
technically, we can't receive it today.
We can
by
receive it,
statute.
but we can't approve it.
No, it has to come in a day before the meeting in order
Oh.
to be considered received, the way the statute reads. So
Okay.
we could accept it at next meeting and approve it next meeting. We can also approve the septic as a use permitted as of right tonight. But because it came in today, if it had come in on Thursday, we could have identified it as received and then could have issued an approval if we decided that the information was adequate. So unfortunately, Dan,
Right.
we can look at it, we can ask questions, come up with questions for next meeting if we have any.
Was kind of expecting that, Dan. But it's simply what we've done by bifurcating this into a full submission
Mhm.
for permit is to take the wall out and resubmit it with more information I know you needed. The one thing that we wanted to do, the plans show us a staging area. So if
Mhm.
we could bring in heavy materials prior to the septic installation, if we can get the septic approved, of course, that'll have to go to the health department for approval. These plans you're looking at now are plans that were prepared for the health department. And we need your approval for the septic, which is a complete use by right, I guess. And then I've submitted more information as requested for the when you see that submission. Yeah, this was it here, I believe. But anyway, it's simply right now, we can't do any work on the shoreline until after the lake drawdown, which will be in October.
Mhm.
And then we would put silt fence in to protect the shoreline. That's the shoreline there.
So your septic system failure isn't critical?
Yes, it is. The septic system is critical. And what I tried to do, because I wanted to get the heavy materials in first, was to include it in that submission. But I realized you needed more information. So I prepared a full application to be reviewed later. I was just
Okay,
hoping to get the septic system done now. And then if you have questions at the next meeting, I can answer those. We can make any changes in the meantime
Mhm.
of these plans, whatever's requested. I think all the information you need is there in these
So
plans now. Yep.
Here's, let me see if I understand what you're saying. You're saying that you'd like to repair the septic system soon, but you have to wait till October or when the lake is drawn down to do the wall. So you're thinking of staging the material into the upland review area for the wall replacement, that'll hold so that you can repair your septic system, and then in the fall you'll come back and do the work on the wall with the material already there.
Yes.
Oh,
That's
that's
simply
fine.
that. That's it. And if you look at the next plan sheet too, you'll see the actual staging area. It goes down into the 25-foot setback a little bit. If you don't want to store stuff, if you don't want me storing stuff on that embankment, that's the upland, and it's covered with just uh, low uh, grasses, etc. It's cut maybe once or twice a year just to maintain it, but it does act as a when I have sheet flow coming off the site towards the lake, that green area there, the 25-foot setback, acts as a infiltration area before the wall. So there's not a lot of pressure behind the wall. And the wall, when you look at the details, will show you that I'm only planning on going 3 feet high. I put that plan together too quickly last time and didn't realize that the height of the wall would be an issue as far as approval. So I changed the detail to show 3 feet. I've checked the shoreline. It will work fine. But the existing condition of the shoreline is just getting worn away by wave action.
What is the date of the plan that shows the stockpiling? Is there a date on that drawing?
Oh, that's it's included with the submission, and I'm sorry, I don't have a date. Oh, no, I don't have a date.
On that, okay. But it's sheet 2 of 3. So
Yeah.
of the plans that were submitted with the application.
Yeah, the previous one did concentrate on the septic system.
So what I'm
Uh,
thinking, Bill,
yep.
is what we can do is we could approve the repair of the septic system and the stockpiling of the material as shown on sheet 2 of 3 of the new application. Whatever the number is. Can't see what's the number.
042520.
No, it can't have the same number as the use permitted as of right. It has to have a June number.
Okay.
So it'll need a new permit because we're not receiving it tonight anyways.
Yeah. The next in sequence would be 062528.
062528. Okay. How does anybody else feel about using the sheet 2 of 3 of this application that was received today by submitted to the wetlands office as the stockpiling area authorized under use permitted as of right under maintenance and enjoyment of residential home? How do you guys feel about it?
Makes
I don't
sense.
have a problem. Stuart, Paisley, I don't have a problem.
Me either.
There will be
question I
no
have-
significant impact to the wetlands.
Mark, how do you feel?
Yeah, I think that's fine. It's provided the additional material or information that we would need, if we had received it last month. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's boulders, so it's not like it's loose material.
Right, yeah, yep.
So
It's a gravity wall, boulders with filling voids, and it will actually drain out. The water will not stay behind the wall because it'll drain out because of the gravel fill behind it, drainage fill.
So Bill, I'm willing to make a motion on that if you're ready.
Yeah, I just have one question. That dock is already there?
It is.
Okay,
I have a
go ahead,
question.
Marla.
I have
Okay,
a
sorry.
question. You just said that the water will go through and drain out the bottom. Where does it go when it drains out the bottom?
Basically, there are voids between the boulders
Uh-huh.
that will be infilled. They're called chinks to keep
Yep.
everything
Okay.
stable. But it won't be a masonry jointed wall. So any water coming behind the wall will seep through the gaps in the dry laid boulder wall.
And into the lake.
So eventually it's going into the lake. Does it take silt with it when it does that?
That's why there is textile fabric around the entire the fill behind the wall. Geotextile fabric wrapping it that keeps the sediments out of it.
Right. The geotextile has a mesh fine enough to hold back the finer particles.
Yes.
Right.
I'm learning something new already.
There you go.
One question
I
I have is,
Yep.
I think on the section drawing on sheet
Yeah, 3 of 3.
3 of 3, sheet 3. So the boulders just get placed on the existing soil?
Yes, and that will if we find that when we go to place the boulders, the first course, that the ground is not compacted enough, we will need to put a compacted gravel base below it as a foundation. But we do know that these larger sized boulders will sit into the grade below the normal water, and it will be out of the water when the lake is drawn down. One of the things I've found out in the last few years about the lake drawdown is that they leave it down longer now, which is better because it keeps the ice from attacking the wall. In past years, one of the things we found is that they only lowered the lake for possibly a few weeks or a month. And then the water would rise again, freeze, and that would cause moving action to the existing wall. Basically, the existing wall is a stone, dry laid stone wall as well, but the stones are too small. And, you know, they just got pulled apart. But there are these conditions now where the lake drawdown is longer now through the freeze thaw of the lake.
Yeah, the other thing, Wes, that it does, leaving it drawn down longer, it allows the freezing of the aquatic vegetation that would grow very heavily along the shore. So it kills the roots so that then there's not so much aquatic vegetation growing along the edges. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, it's actually drawdown is specifically for the environmental factors and also for property owners to maintain their shoreline.
Right.
I know that's going to get tricky now because of permitting requirements, but I appreciate this opportunity to present this to the town and hopefully get it approved.
So
Go ahead, Paula. Oh, sorry, Dan.
administratively, we still have the request for jurisdictional ruling about the septic.
I'm gonna handle that. I'm gonna
Okay.
do a motion right now. So, because we can't accept the application, the permit application today, we know what the number will be, but it can't be statutorily received today. So I'm gonna move that application 04-25-20 for 23 Hiawatha Heights by Wesley Smith and Susan McMillan to repair a septic system as shown in the application and to stockpile stones as shown on sheet 2 of 3 of a new application 06-25-28 submitted to the Wetlands Office today, both to be approved, both activities to be approved as a use permitted as of right under maintenance and enjoyment of a residential home.
Second.
Thank
Okay,
you.
we have a motion by Marla Butt, seconded by Mark Parker to approve repair of septic system and stockpiling of boulders for future work on the shoreline. Dottie, I hope you get the details of the motion because I don't remember all the things. But anyways, is there any further discussion on this? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Thank
Aye.
you all very much.
Is there anybody opposed? Okay, the motion passes unanimously.
We'll see you next month.
I will be at the meeting for any additional questions you may have, and thank you so much for your time today. And Dan, thank you so much for everything you've done in helping me get through the process.
Absolutely. You're welcome.
You're welcome.
Thank you. I'll be leaving now, okay?
Okay,
Okay, thank you.
yeah, thank you. Good night.
Good night.
Okay, Dan, new applications.
So I had a couple agent approvals. One we had caught glimpses of before with 60 Indian Spring Road. They withdrew their original and resubmitted the application to build 2 decks with connecting steps on the shore of near Witches Woods. The commission was looking for a cross-section drawing and to have a revised design that did not encroach into the rear yard setback. They had moved the closest deck to approximately 20 feet. This is a depiction of E&S. And they gave us a cross-section drawing. Oh, this is upside down. I'm sorry. But I gave my approval for that on 5/8/25, and it went into the 5/16 Villager, and it is just cleared its appeals date. We had another deck, this one around Bungie, for 5 Laurel Hill Drive for Karen Spencer, who's come before the commission in the past. That one was pretty straightforward. That had a non-conforming side yard setback, but they are replacing the deck and then boxing in an area that is that conforms. That's not, that meets the setback requirement. I'm sorry. Jose Macho approved this as one of his last actions for the Bungie board. And we put this in the newspaper on 5/23. It is still through, the appeals period is through 6/8. But nobody's asked about it. If you guys would like me to move on to the next 2 applications, we have Jonathan Murray with us. These are activities that are in the upland review area, but since we were so close to the meeting, I wanted to bring these to you to see if you wanted to weigh in. The first, and I treated these as 2 separate applications because the work is on opposite sides of the property and not interrelated with each other. The first being a 32 by 16 in-ground pool, the 4-foot retaining wall. And Jonathan, would you like to speak to your application at all?
Yeah, how's it going, guys? Thanks for taking this. I think I did a pretty good description if you can read my handwriting. But I think it's pretty straightforward. If you have any questions, please let me know. I mean, it's all my measurements are right there on this form. This is what I submitted to NDDH. So there's a little bit more than you might want to know, but those are all my offsets.
And this one is approximately, the 4-foot retaining wall is approximately 70 feet from the pond. It's pretty straightforward, I think, as Jonathan said.
So Dan, I did a little research because this isn't real clear as to where the wetlands are, and because the wetlands aren't shown on this, it shows the pond and the brook. So I can do some screen sharing. I use the GIS program to kind of clarify what was going on and how it looked. So if you want,
Yep.
I think I can share.
Go ahead.
Okay, so share that. Can you see that?
Yep.
Okay. So what I did is I took some measurements from what was in the application form and basically put red markers where there is the pool and then the barn. But that didn't tell me what the lay of the land was. You can kind of see the brook meandering around. You can see the pond's edge, but you can't tell what the topography is. So I ended up putting on the topography from the GIS program. Now the red dots are still there, so you can see that it's the pond, it's well back from the swimming pool is well back from the ponded area, and there's a good grass area in between, which would act as a vegetative buffer. For the garage is close. There's this little shed that exists there now, and the garage was shown on the drawing, the application drawing, just to the east of that. And there seems to be a drop off from there. It's not clear. It's not clear to me exactly what's going on here, but the wetlands boundary would be probably right along where the toe of slope is on that embankment. Was this a mined area? Was this a gravel mining area?
Yeah,
Historically?
from what I heard, yeah, it used to be a gravel pit. I've heard a million different stories, to be honest. I'm not 100% sure. I think I can't really read the grades on that, but there is a pile over there. I'm wondering if that's
Yeah, This is a
Oh,
pile
okay,
here.
okay. It's not a depression. It's actually raised right there. So.
Yeah, at that
Okay,
location.
okay.
This
But
is
yeah,
built-
there's random piles kind of everywhere, and I know Mr. Lewinsky can probably weigh in on some of that. The whole property and surrounding properties are just kind of, there's windrows of, it looks like old excavation, and
Yeah.
whether it's stockpiles or gravel or whatever it is. So
So it looks like the garage is significantly back from where what would be the wetlands edge, because you can see where the water course probably is. And he was going to be 70 feet from that. But based upon what you had for the diagram for where the existing shed and where the garage was going to be, it looks like you're clearly back from it. So if your land disturbance is only going to be limited to the, grading for the garage, I don't see why this can't be processed as a wetlands agent approval. I don't know
One-
how everybody
one
else feels,
clear-
but
One clarification, John.
Yes.
Your steel garage shows 40 by 40,
yes, yep,
but it's drawn at 40 by 80.
it is.
Well,
Is it just the number, or is it the scale?
It's the rectangle, 40
Yeah,
by 40
it's
square.
yeah. I was using my kid's colored pencil on that. It's a true 40 by 40
Okay.
building.
so just to do further clarification, the soils map shows the areas that are in blue and purple are the wetland soils, or which considered hydric soils, and the brown is non-wetland soils. So that's why I turned on the topography, because it's clearly that the wetlands do not go all the way up that slope. They probably are at the base of the slope. And that's what I wanted to see, is to make sure that the garage wasn't too close to the actual wetlands. So just wanted to give you that idea. So I think that this should be processed as a wetlands agent approval.
Now, is this above? Remember, we had that problem with drainage on Payne Road going down and impacting the lower.
This is Payne District
Peckham
Road. I don't
Brook.
know if that's the same.
Oh, Payne District. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Oh,
Yeah.
right
Near-
across from the dump transfer
Transfer
station.
station, yeah.
got it. Okay.
That's that driveway that comes in. You can't see the house really when the leaves are on the trees.
Okay, my bad. I thought it was Payne Road, not Payne District Road. Oh,
Yeah,
oh, there
I
it is.
said-
Okay, yeah, Payne District. Okay, all right.
Okay, how do I stop screen sharing? Got to be able to do that. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
You don't need a motion, do you, Bill?
As long as Dan's okay with the way it's set up, and it looks like permit fees might have been paid already. Is that
Yeah.
true, John?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, yeah. I paid the two separate permit fees just to clear that up. I know they're pretty far apart, so.
So Dan, you okay with going ahead with that?
Is,
Yeah, I believe these are both agent approvals.
is the pond Sampson Pond?
Yes,
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Samson Swamp.
Sampson Swamp, yeah. Yeah, that's why I see Bill's so quiet, because I believe Bill's property abuts the side, right, Bill?
Yes.
Yeah.
So we will take no further action on this. And John, you can meet up with Dan and get your paperwork and probably refund on your
We
fees.
can't do a permit fee refund.
Okay,
There's no price difference. He's got two applications. He paid two fees. The cost for a wetlands agent approval and individual permit, they're the same, aren't they, Dan?
Yes.
So
a
there's no
residential
need
fee.
for a refund. He chose to bring
Okay.
in two separate applications. He could have done them as one, but
I asked for two since they were on opposite.
so far apart.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and if it were
No complaints here at all. I appreciate all the help. No, I'm not worried about that.
I
Okay.
wrestled with it. If it were a pool and a cabana,
Yeah.
like
Yep.
but they're a little bit different in different places, different areas of wetlands in proximity.
Mhm.
But John, I'll process these permits this week. They do have to get noticed in the Woodstock Villager. That is probably the slowest part of the process. If I get it in to the publisher this week, they'll publish it next Friday. And then there's a 15-day appeal period from that after publication.
Okay, great.
But we'll talk soon.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. Really appreciate the help.
You're welcome. Thank you.
And we're ready to move on to the next one.
Yes.
We have another application for Andrews Road. We saw this site plans for this property for kind of related to a free split, but we didn't grant the free split. We granted house on that. This is moving forward with the 2-lot subdivision on the property, and I believe we have Norm here.
Yes, thank you, Dan. Yeah, for the record, Norm Tebow, Killing the Engineering Associates. I was before the commission last month for a free split on this parcel that the commission approved. We're back here this time for the remaining land to be split into 2 lots. We are utilizing a shared driveway that's substantially going to be constructed over an existing cart path that kind of runs parallel to a wetland. I could share my screen if it's easier.
Yeah, go ahead, Norm.
All right. Where are we here? Okay. Share. Is it coming up? I'm not sure what's going on here.
No, it's not coming up, but we can.
Hang on.
Yep.
Hang on. I got it. I've got it. Right here. Share. All right. So, this parcel, right here, this is the free split that we were before you with last month. The lot is sort of, there are wetlands on both sides of it. On the east and the west, there's a large wetland system on the eastern side, and then like a wooded wetland on the western side. We've got 2 lots proposed, one 2.1 acres, the other one about 3.7 acres. So this would be the layout. This shaded area here is the the easement for the rear lot to access along here. You can kind of see. Actually, I'm going to go back. This path here is the existing gravel road. It actually leads back to the Syriac property, and they actually have a deeded easement to utilize this path to get to their property. That will remain intact as part of this. So we are going to be improving that path, making it accessible for 2 vehicles for the first lot, and then as we get to the back lot, it just the lot will be a gravel driveway. It's relatively flat, not a whole lot of slope to the driveway at all, but the runoff from the driveway does drain to the west. There is no direct impact to wetlands. We are putting in a cross culvert at Andrews Road because there seems to be a roadside swale that ultimately discharges into these wetlands. The western side of that pipe we'll have some riprap. It'll be just about on the wetlands edge. And we will have riprap on the eastern side as well. As I said, that's basically to just allow the flow that goes along the gutter line of Andrews Road to continue flowing the way it does. And from this wetland system, you can see there's a cross culvert, a 15-inch cross culvert, that any overflow from this wetlands drains to the southwest across Andrews Road. As we did with the application last month, we did set the houses relatively the high points of the property. We have sort of a ridge that runs north to south, and the terrain drops off gradually to the east and the west. We do have approval from the Northeast District Department of Health, and we are proposing silt fence at the clearing limits. We don't anticipate there to be any kind of excessive runoff, just due to the fact that the lots themselves really aren't that steep. They're relatively gently sloped, and we're going to keep a nice buffer of wooded terrain between the house lots and the wetlands. And as you know, we do require approval from this commission to move forward with subdivision with the Planning and Zoning Commission. So that's essentially it. I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
I have a question for Dan. Dan,
Sure.
was there a fee charged for this?
Yes.
What was that?
$195. It was the $35 residential use fee plus $100 for the 2 lots, $50 a piece,
Okay,
and a $60 state fee.
right, okay. So Norm, the regulated activities in this application are the construction of a driveway in the upland review area and the installation of a proposed well in the upland review area. That appears to be the only things I see on here.
That's
Yeah,
all I
and
could
there'll be
find.
some clearing.
And the footing drain,
Yeah,
the
and the
discharging
footing,
of the
correct.
footing drains.
Yeah, and there'll be approximately 30 to 40 feet of clearing within the upland review area for both lots as well.
Okay. So in submitting the application, we get so few of these. There's actually 2 lots with regulated activities, so that there would be, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm checking this out with the rest of the commission agency. So that what we would be doing is approving the construction of both of these homes on one permit, on one approval, one permit. Correct? Am I mistaking how this works? They don't come back again to get a separate approval for each lot. The subdivision that's being approved is licensing these activities.
That's how we worked the K&M Villa subdivision.
Yeah.
So we made a
And I think
stipulation.
to add to that, Dan, I think as long as the individual site plans do not exceed the footprint that we're showing here. I think if we propose anything additional, additional clearing, widening the driveway, moving the driveway over, any of that kind of stuff, then clearly we'd have to come back to this commission.
So the question that I have is, if the lots get sold separately to different people and there's a permit that covers both lots, and we can't transfer a portion of a permit. Is the way I see it. I don't know how the rest of the agency feels,
These will be developed by the owner.
Okay, so that won't be a problem.
He's a builder.
Okay.
He'll be building the homes on these lots.
All right. So I guess then what we're saying is that this is not technically it could class as a wetlands agent approval, but it's a subdivision, so it gets a different thing. So I think we really need to issue it as a permit. And this application was received when, Dan? The 28th of
28th.
May. So we would be receiving it today, but we would then, since it's not, boy. Typically, if it was an individual permit, you receive it at the regular meeting, then you wait 30 days before you issue it. Wetlands agent approvals don't require that kind of thing. I'm a little trying to figure out how we're gonna process this.
Bill Rowinski from the K and M Villa, we put a stipulation in there that if one of the lots was sold separately, that they'd have to come back for a permit.
Okay. But that would actually had regulated activities, didn't it? It wasn't just work in the upland review area, was it?
I don't
You
remember.
remember?
I'd have to look at it.
Yeah. Um,
Well,
I'm just trying,
I think procedurally, because it's so similar with, except for that, regular activity part, why don't we just handle it that way and just have them, next month, apply for the two separately, or at least in the future, at least, when the people, whoever buy the property, starts building them, they gotta,
well, yeah, because since we can't transfer a portion, so if he decided to
Right,
sell the
right,
lot to
right.
somebody else, they'd have to come in for a new approval.
right.
And then it would be a wetlands agent approval. But because it's a subdivision, we would be authorizing all the regulated activities in the subdivision. And typically that wouldn't go to the wetlands agent to issue an approval, it would still be the commission. So if that were the case, Dan, was this received as an individual permit application?
So it came in on our long form.
Okay, all right.
Well, a hybrid, our short form cover page
Yep,
and
yep.
then and the rest of the long form documentation.
Okay. So I think I don't have any problem with granting an approval for this based upon what I'm seeing. But I think from a procedural standpoint, because it's going to be issued as a permit, not as a wetlands agent approval, because it's a subdivision, I think we shouldn't be making our decision until next month's meeting.
Yeah, that's understood. It's really what we anticipated. I mean, we're just going to be accepted at planning and zoning this month as well. So
Okay.
there's no big rush to push
Okay.
this through.
Then I will move that the commission accept application 05-25-260 Andrews Road for a proposed 2-lot subdivision in the upland review area for consideration at next month's meeting.
Second,
I have a motion by Marla Butt, seconded by Mark Parker to accept application 05-26 that 05-25-260 Andrews Road, Shane Pollock, proposed 2-lot subdivision within the upland review area for consideration at the next meeting of the Inland Wetlands and Watercourses Agency. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
I,
Aye.
aye.
Aye. The motion is unanimous. The motion passes.
Thank
Very
you.
much, Norm. Yep, you're welcome. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Have a nice night.
You
You
too.
too.
Have a good one.
Bill? Bill? What's,
Yep.
what's an upland review area?
It's also could be, some people refer to it as a buffer area. So it's
Oh.
a section of around a wetland or water course that's protected and requires certain considerations for activities to be done there, such as digging.
Or, yep, building something or, sure,
Digging or building. Certainly
okay.
starts with digging, but anything beyond that too.
So if you can print off a copy of or get a copy of the regulations, they're on the website, and go into the definitions, and it's actually defined there. Upland
I
review
saw
area.
all of that and I was ruffling through it and I thought, okay, this is going to take a few more days to read all of it and absorb it all, but
It's a lot.
Yeah.
It's a lot.
but that's
But-
okay. That's one of the reasons I'm here. I like learning things
Yeah.
and this is all very interesting.
So Kathy, on page 7 of our Woodstock Inland Wetlands and Watercourses Regulations in the definitions section, an upland review area means non-wetland or non-watercourse areas where activities are likely to impact or affect wetlands or continuous watercourses. Down,
Oh.
down gradient or whatever, yeah, so.
Okay. Okay, so it's not the wetlands itself, but it's something that might
It's
have
the area
activities
upland,
going on it.
higher up on land.
Yeah,
that,
that's
you know,
running
the
down
activities,
into
the
down
runoff
into
could then
the-
run off down into the wetland or watercourse.
Okay,
It's most commonly called a buffer, but it's the commission's area of jurisdiction is within that buffer and in wetlands.
okay,
The wetlands agent can issue certain types issue permits for certain activities in the upland. Everything that is done though in wetlands needs to be issued by the agency. And we have two different types of buffers. One's 100 foot from a wetland soil,
right. And
or 125
125,
foot
yep.
from a brook, stream, river, lake, pond,
Watercourse.
watercourse.
Yep, I absorbed that long time ago. I live on Lake Bunkie, so I know all of that.
So Kathy, get my contact information from Dan and you and I should meet
Okay,
together and I'll go over a lot of the stuff that we're kind of dealing
well,
with.
that'd be good. Okay,
Okay.
yep, great.
All right, Bill, ready to move on to the next application?
Yes,
Okay, we've got a request for jurisdictional ruling, application number 052527 for John Darrigan. This is 55 Underwood Road. I had sent John an inquiry letter about his activities. From the road, I could see a stockpile of mulch and soil and the clearing of trees. That was it came as a complaint to our office. So I sent John got a letter and got in contact with him and said this is a regulated activity. It could possibly be for maintenance enjoyment of the home, a use permitted as of right. So Mr. Darrigan produced this application, and I believe we have Paul Archer here to speak to it.
Good evening. For the
Well-
record, my name is Paul Archer with Archer Surveying, here representing Mr. Darrigan. How this whole project with Mr. Darrigan came about was, I don't know if you people are aware, about a month and a half ago, Mr. Darrigan on his property, his future grandson was hit by a tree. And this is the area that he got life flighted out. And 7 surgeries later, he's still doing well, still recovering. So that started Mr. Darrigan into this whole process of going through his property, looking at the dead trees that were gypsy moths killed, and decided that it was time for him to do some maintenance on his property, clear some trees, and get rid of all the dead wood. And the big thing to note that Mr. Darrigan did no excavation of any stumps or anything like that. All stumps were ground on his property, nothing, there was no excavation done on his property. He ground the stumps down and then he brought in mulch to cover over the whole area. And I took some pictures for you guys to see. You know, those are the 2 areas that were involved. And we went ahead and took some pictures. This here was the gravel place that you looked at. Is there was a low spot in his lawn that was ponding up there right near the parking area. So he brought in some gravel to level that out, and that is all going to get loomed and seeded. And then if you keep going down in the pictures, you can see there's the mulch. And keep going down, you can see the areas of what he did here. He basically was in here, clearing out dead trees, grinding the stumps, and trying to make this area safer for him and his family. And that's what the final product looks like right there.
I have a question for you, Mr. Archer.
Sure.
Are you aware that the wetlands were delineated for this property when the subdivision was processed back in the 80s?
I probably would be because dealing with subdivisions, so I would assume that it was done. Was I aware where the wetlands are? I am not.
Okay. So, Dan, I would like to screen share.
Sure. Go ahead.
It says you cannot start screen sharing while others are participated in sharing. Okay. Now let's try again. Okay. So this is can you see this?
Yep.
Yes, I can.
Okay. So this is the subdivision map. It's
Yep, well aware
Record-
of it, because you see lot 11 there?
yeah,
That's
he's
my
lot
daughter.
10.
Yep, number 11 is my daughter's lot, so I'm
Ah,
aware
okay. Okay.
of where we are, yes.
So for future references for your client, Mr. Daigle,
Yep.
he should be aware that this map exists and this is where the wetlands are. And that any place that's that he wants to do filling work or alteration of in the future, he should be looking at this delineation as where he needs to, any 100 feet back from the edge of the wetlands or 125 feet back from the pond, he needs to come to us and talk to us. So if you could provide him with this, I got this from the land records. I couldn't print it off because obviously I don't have access rights.
Nope,
So this is
I have a copy of that in my office.
okay. So it would be helpful if you would make him aware of that. And
I
Dan,
will.
I can stop screen sharing now.
Oh, wait a minute, don't take it off yet. Don't take it
No.
off yet. So that finger that stretches above the pond, it says edge of wetland.
Yep.
So is the wetland inside that finger or
Yeah.
outside
Yep.
that finger?
Inside. Inside.
okay,
It goes
okay.
up.
Okay.
So the house is sitting here.
Now in there where the number 10 is
Yep.
that in a wetland or is that in the higher?
No, that's upland.
That's upland review area.
These
okay.
are the wetlands. The
Okay,
brook.
yep.
Okay. And then the pond with a little finger coming up.
Right. Okay.
And I don't know if there was a permit issued for the construction of the house or not. I was frankly surprised to see the wetlands were actually delineated by a soil scientist. So, because you look at the date of it, it's like 1979, but it was done. So,
Oh yeah.
those are old records. We wouldn't have those files anymore anyway. So,
I'm not a soil scientist, but I walk the areas that the mulch is down and the trees were cut, and I don't believe they were in the wetlands. I know they were in your upland review area, but I don't believe any of the trees were cut in a wetlands. But again, I mean, if the trees are dead, they are maintenance to do, and
not a
it is a
problem.
liability.
It's
You
no
know,
problem.
he has to get them down.
He just needs to know that if he wants to do work in those areas, just let us know. We can always give uses permitted as of right under maintenance and enjoyment of residential home. It's just that when we don't know what's going on,
It makes it, yes, that's why
makes
we're
it
here.
difficult.
Correct.
Yeah. I can stop screen sharing now.
Yep.
Okay. I'll stop here. Okay. I stopped.
Anybody like to have any further action on this item?
Well, he's got an application for a use permit as a right. So I don't see a problem with what I've seen so far in the photographs. I just think that we should be granting him an after the fact use permitted as a right for maintenance and enjoyment of a residential home. So I move that application 05-25-27 for 55 Underwood Road for John Derrigan. Am I pronouncing that right?
Yes.
Derrigan, be granted a use permitted as of right after the fact for tree removal, grinding, mulching, and loaming and seating area around his house
Second,
under maintenance and enjoyment of residential home. If I didn't say
Second.
that before, yeah.
Okay, we have a motion made by Marla Butt, seconded by Mark Parker to approve the request for application 05-25-27 55 Underwood Road for John Darrigan, request for work in upland review area, dead tree removal, grinding, mulching, loam and seeding as an after the fact permit.
Nope, after fact, use permitted as of right under maintenance and enjoyment of a residential home.
Okay, yep. Sorry.
That's okay.
Is there any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
All right,
Aye.
aye.
Aye. The motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Archer.
Thank you very much. Have a nice night.
Yeah, good night.
Have a good one.
Night.
Yeah.
Now, how does that affect what's coming under number 8 with the tree clearing and all?
It's been handled.
Okay, so the two can be, you don't have to handle each one of them just because they're written down. You can
A,
assume they're the same thing. Okay,
a
makes a
permit,
lot of sense.
a permit sometimes can be a step in resolving a violation or a,
Okay,
and so this was originally work done without a permit in a sense,
yes.
and we brought them into the process here with this. But, moving on to administrative business.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so Truong's still on our agenda here. I haven't been able to make any headway. And she's been kind of an elusive person to deal with. I was hoping for an opportunity with the application for her other property for the decks that there'd be an opportunity to have a discussion with her about the tree clearing that went on at 132 Beaver Dam. But
Indian Spring.
I'm sorry, Indian Spring. But all of my conversations with her, besides trying to wrangle that original fee out of her, have been she's always busy. She can't really talk. So most of my work has been with her contractors. I don't know how the commission feels about dropping this one, or keeping it on future agendas and letting my successor know that this was an activity that we're trying to, coach Mrs. Truong regarding.
Have you seen the site recently?
No,
Okay, so, and have you received any further complaints from the original complainant?
no.
Okay, so what I think should happen is there should, personally, because there's no activity there and it's clear cutting, we want to make sure she's aware of the regulations. So she should be sent a letter that I personally think she should be sent a letter that any future work that she wants to do within 125 feet of the water course, that she needs to come to the wetlands office to determine what kinds of approvals she may need for that. And I would just say from that letter, that would close this complaint and close this violation. But send one by certified, send one by regular mail, whatever you have, and then let it go. I would not, if she was still doing activities, then I would say no, but she's not doing anything and it was clear cutting. It wasn't filling. It was, and you've got no further complaints from anybody, so I don't see pursuing it.
She has to be aware now that any work within along the lake.
But I would
For s-
document it in
yeah.
writing so that there's
Yeah.
something in our files to that effect should something else happen down the road.
Okay. Yeah, I'm happy to do that.
This brings up a good point. You talk about upland review area is 100 feet and 125 feet. Do we consider that as a distance, like a water line distance?
Well, there's a problem because technically water courses can be swamps, marshes, and bogs. And those are also designated as poorly drained soils usually. So they're not mutually exclusive. What I've been doing for while I've been on the commission is just looking at where there's actually water flow or standing water and taking the 125 feet back from that, not taking it from a swamp, marsh, or a bog, which is technically a water course by definition also. And so, yeah, it would be from the edge of water. That's what we've
Okay.
been doing in the past.
So the point I'm getting at is are we supposed to think of this as a horizontal slice from the water? Or does it follow the topography? If there's a steep slope and you go up 125 feet, you end up only 10 feet away by a water line measurement?
I'm not going to do the trigonometry to figure out whether or not it's 125 feet when there's a steep slope there. No, I think it would be from whatever the slope length is. I think that's the intent.
As the crow flies, I think is gonna.
I would stay away from as the crow flies, and I would do it as that you could measure with a tape on the ground.
Sure.
And that's
Sure.
measuring it with from the edge of the water to up the slope, 25 feet. The other's
Okay.
too complicated to figure it out.
Well, Bill brought it up, he should have to do it then.
No, it's basically about the surface, the topography. The dimensions on the topography would be governing.
The next item in the administrative enforcement section was the Darrigan letter that I had sent.
We're done with that. We don't need to
Okay.
talk about it anymore.
Okay. And I also took in a complaint about activities related to a permit issued for Johnny Barlow on 203 Crystal Pond Road. Now, the complaint, a lot of people kayak along that shoreline and watch every little bit of development going up, and there's strong concerns about the water quality and kind of anything kind of gets a scrutinous eye. So I was sent a picture of silt fence, which I was gonna put up on the screen here. So this came to me Tuesday morning of last week. This silt fence that's in the water wasn't depicted on a site plan or part of the approval. I think they were trying to potentially do the right thing when they were installing their beach sand.
What
What
approval number is this? What file number is this?
This was 05, I'm sorry, let's see.
09/22/05?
09/22/05 and 09/22/05M, the modified one. So recently we did a modification of a permit that was issued to his father and transferred and modified it to him. And the original approval, there was 15 to 16 yards of beach sand approved. And that came in with the complaint, that this ENS was dilapidated, and they put the Sahara in. I asked Johnny to confirm the amount of sand that was placed and to shore up the ENS. But part of me feels if this was not on the approved plan and serves no purpose, it really shouldn't be there. So I wanted the commission's opinion on this ENS that's installed in the water. But also Johnny sent me an email response to my inquiry letter, and that he was initially unaware of the 15 to 16 yard limit of sand. And after speaking to his excavator operator, they brought in 20 to 22 yards of sand. I think removal of 5 yards of sand might be more trauma to the shore than it's worth. But I'm happy to hear what the commission has to say about this and the dilapidated silt fence that's in the water. I presently had asked them to shore it up, no pun intended. But I'm wondering if the commission would actually want that silt fence removed.
Dan, do you have the drawing, the modified drawing that we approved?
Yeah,
You have that
I'll
available?
have to go chase it down on the website real quick.
Okay, while you're doing that, could you put it back to the photograph of the silt fence? Yeah, those, yeah, okay. When were those taken?
I believe Memorial Day weekend.
Okay. And when we did our approval, did we approve that much land disturbance?
I don't,
So that area on the hillside was depicted as to be a clearing limit kind of around where my cursor is, but it is also outside of the upland review area.
Doesn't matter. The thing is that silt fences are good for 1 acre of contributing drainage area. And it looks like they've denuded and disturbed significantly larger than an acre. So silt fences typically wouldn't work in a situation like that anyways. You'd want to have some kind of settling hole with directing the water to go to that settling hole. And then you could have some kind of, leak off from that. The silt fence in the water makes no sense at all. The fact that they have so much contributing drainage area, which we were not aware of, that they were going to do all that. Even though it's outside of the 125 feet, it changes how you use the erosion and sediment controls. This is a
so
lot more
basically
complicated.
to clarify things, the scope of work was not accurately delineated for our review.
Okay.
When it first came forward, I don't remember seeing anything near the scale of what we're looking at in these photos.
Yep. Yep.
So it's a little bit humorous looking at the first picture. With my experience and training in coastal processes, if this was the ocean, they put in so much sand that you can see the high water mark came up and just ate away at the artificial sand, dunes that were put in there. They just put way too much sand in there, and you can see before they put the silt fence up in the water, which probably definitely cut down the wave action. But the wave action, when the wind was blowing, it looked like it cut right into all that sand, and there's like a straight wall.
It
Well,
does.
boy.
it looks like there's more than 22 yards to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Oh dear.
this,
Okay.
I've got the original site plan up,
Yep.
and I will zoom in to the area.
So that's where the septic system is going to be in, where they are up on that hillside.
The septic, I think, is at the crest of the hill over a stone wall. Let me see if you can see that in the picture.
Yep. Okay.
But when I did go out to the site initially to inspect the original silt fence, they had only applied it in, they didn't apply these 2 outer wings here. They were in the process of taking this building down. They had all the silt fence on site ready to install. The trees that were cleared along this fringe here, I took numerous pictures and showed them in a past report to the commission about, they were all rotted inside the stumps that were on the ground. Anything that was taken down over in this area looked pretty rotted out. And that was their rationale for removing them. But on the notes section, they describe the amount of fill I'm sorry, the amount of beach sand to be placed here somewhere.
It would have been done better to put in like a retaining wall if they wanted to have that deep of sand on the upper beach.
Well, they did say they reduced the width of it, so they concentrated it more too.
And
Yeah,
how long before they would have to maintain and add more? What does it take for that sand? How long? It's not gonna last that long, right?
Not long, no.
If they don't control that concentrated runoff in the middle there, yeah, they're gonna keep.
French.
Yeah,
okay.
they've got to get the upper area more even so that it's more of a sheet flow, instead of,
Yeah.
coming down into a low spot and creating a channel.
Yeah.
So when you look at the sequence of construction, I'm looking to see where they talk about when they're going to bring in the beach sand. And guess what? There's no reference to it
Let me
Mhm.
in the sequence of operations.
Who did these drawings?
Norm Tybell.
Okay.
I thought that there was something about at least doing the beachfront.
yeah, I did see a
Before I did.
reference somewhere. I don't know if it was on the original. This is the original permit drawing. Let's see.
No, I've got the modified up, and I'm not seeing anything. The modified showed up in the March 3rd meeting.
So
It
that
was
was
the
a clear cut as well.
Yeah, but they don't show it. They don't show clear cutting the entire slope up the hill.
Yeah.
And
Plus the
all the way up to
removal.
the stone wall. They've gone all the way up to there at least. And the stone wall would still be there because actually stone wall could help to, slow the flow,
Is
so to
that a
speak,
stone wall on
and
top?
act as that's a stone
Oh,
wall.
okay.
And they didn't show them removing that, so that would have been a help to, when they put the septic system in, help to protect the lower area from any siltation because stone wall helped to filter it out, slow it down.
Yeah.
But no,
No.
their plan did not show that. I don't think it showed that extensive amount of clearing. It looks, because the photograph that you showed, Dan, looked like they cleared right up to the stone wall.
It is cleared right up to the stone wall. But I'm kind of juggling a lot here, and I don't want to get John thrown under the bus because I can't find the documents but there was a construction sequence, and in it that the beach was one of their early to do the beach in conjunction with the site work. So I'm kind of going through a lot of documentation here to find where all that is, what application that's
Well,
referenced on.
If you go to the March 3rd meeting, that's where the modification is. And
Yeah. It must have been a product of the original approval that I saw that on, because I saw it on files in the paper folder.
Yeah, well, it should have been in the modification. If they don't show it in the
09.
modification, we should have had that. But needless to say, what do we do now? Definitely the silt fence in the water isn't doing really anything. And I think they need to get some assistance. I think they need to go back to their engineer and ask for advice on erosion and sediment control based upon the extent of the work that they've done, to get guidance on the erosion and sediment controls that they need to put in now that they've clear cut a lot farther than what was originally shown on the plans, and that would change the erosion and sediment controls.
I
That
agree.
might.
I agree.
So they should seek a professional's advice on this. And I think that should be the direction that they should be given.
Yeah, basically the drawings need to be amended to show the conditions that have been created during this construction process. It wasn't, what was originally shown is not what has been done. So the drawings need to be updated to show that.
Well, first, I think they need to get the right erosion and sediment controls, and whether it's on the drawing or not, they need to protect the environment. And they've
Well,
got to talk to their engineer, get their
Yeah,
engineer out there
The
and
two
give
are,
them
the
some
two are
advice.
two are synchronized. When
Yeah.
they have to update the drawings and when they show the new ENS system.
I would like them to get the ENS system in and then have their drawings as an as-built.
Yeah.
As a, you know, because
Would
this is,
you like to see this come back for a modification?
no, I think they should be sent to correspondence that says that they actually have a violation at this point in time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, because they've got siltation going into the water course. They've got clearing beyond what they had told us they were, so that our erosion and sediment controls might be different than what they originally showed us, and that they need to go back and get professional advice and return to the commission with what their consultant told them, their professional engineer told them. So you can actually refer to it as Norm Tybo. They've got to go back to Norm Tybo and get some advice on erosion and sediment control and install those controls and come back to us next month and tell us what they've done. And then we can decide whether we need to have revised drawings. I don't think we have to have them right away. I think they need to get the controls in place to stop that lake from getting sedimented in.
So return with a game plan after advice from their engineer.
Yep. And come back to the commission next month and tell us what they've done to fix the problem, to address the problem, not fix it, to address it.
Well, typically the way it's done in construction is that you come up with a document that shows them what remediates the problem. And then you use that as a document to remediate the problem, and then you've got it as a sequence of operation. So that's all I'm suggesting here.
I agree, but they need to get something done immediately. Because the longer they let it sit, if they wait for plans to be drawn and submitted and found acceptable, the site's not going to get fixed. They need to get their engineer out there and tell them what they need to do and go do it.
It's just a sketch. They only just need a sketch. It's not complicated.
No, it's not real complicated. But Norm could probably draft something up pretty quickly once he saw what it is. But
he's got to he can't just tell them over the phone what to do. He's got to show them.
So Dan, this is actually would be identified as an enforcement action. So it's like a notice of violation that they're silting in the lake. They weren't authorized to silt in the lake. And that's the regulated activity. And they need to contact their engineer to get advice and implement plans to fix the situation, and then come back to the commission next month and tell us what they've done.
Okay.
Looks like they need about a 5-foot wall to hold on.
That's a silt fence you're looking at.
No, I know that, I see that, but what about on the side of the silt fence? Is that all just coming down into the lake, or is it?
It looks like some of their sand already washed into the lake.
Yeah, a lot of it.
Yeah, yeah.
About the quantity of sand, do you guys have an opinion?
Not yet. I gotta see.
You gotta be able to see it and delineate it so you can calculate.
Yeah, and the professional that they go to maybe would need to make the recommendation to remove or whatever any sand that if it's too much excess in the slope of the sand. Yeah. So.
I think they should have to do that. If they didn't do the right thing to start, they should do what they can to fix it. That's terrible. Sorry.
No, you're fine.
It just seems to me like that this is one of those things where people just do it you know, it's better to ask forgiveness than to ask permission.
Mhm. So we've got to document that they need to take an action. And then we'll deal with it next month if they haven't done, if we don't hear from them. It's another thing that Mike's gonna have, that the consultant's gonna have to deal with. So I guess, Bill, are you on board with sending a letter, a notice of violation
Yes,
to
I
the
am.
permittee stating that they have caused an unauthorized siltation of the water course? They need to contact their engineer to get advice and provide us and implement that advice and provide us with what they've done by next meeting.
That sounds satisfactory to me. Even if they, even if all the trees on the slope were dead, they still would have been absorbing rainfall, and the roots would have been absorbing rainfall, even if they were dead dry. So, you know, they created that problem by clearing more than they
Who
should
took
have.
these pictures?
Somebody from a kayak.
Oh,
Wow.
so it was anonymous complaint?
There were a few.
I'll bet.
So do we need any further discussion?
I think so.
Okay.
I'll
Move
just make
forward.
one last comment. I just, on page 4 of the 0922-05 modification request, sequence of operations. Number 5, excavate area for proposed sandy beach and place sand. Per IWWC approval, the maximum amount of sand to be placed shall be 15 cubic yards.
That's
But
maybe
as
a
far
couple of
as time,
truckloads.
as far as timing, it doesn't say, you know, I'm just assuming if step 5 is, you know, in the middle, I don't know.
You're looking on the modified plans?
Yes, on the modified plan.
Excavate area for proposed sandy beach and place sand per, okay, so that's coming in before stripping topsoil and stockpiling where shown in the, so they followed the sequence,
Yeah.
but the sequence was probably not the way to go, but, all right.
So the only problem I see is, you know, the sequence might have been approved by us, but, you know, we approved the 15 cubic yards, and if they went to 22, they obviously put way too much. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, there's 3 times 22.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Looks like it.
And it didn't address the removal of the topsoil with the trees
Yeah.
and root systems. Anyway,
Shall we,
they've got a lot to account for.
shall we move on?
Yep.
Agent report.
Okay, a lot of this we have covered in the meeting. I still have no replies from Putnam Water Pollution Control, ECCD, or Wyndham County about the white coloration that I reported in the dry creek at Roseland Park. I haven't been able to get out to look and see if that condition still persists. We've had quite a bit of rainfall, but I'll include that in my stops when I go out again. I uploaded the Solaire photographs. Let's see, that were taken 5/1. I'll share that real quick. This is on the today's meeting page.
So I'm looking at the turbidity curtain. It doesn't look like it's 100 feet away from the entrance to the dam. But are they done with their dredging?
Yeah, they said they were wrapping up, and they have 2 bags there, as you might be able to
Mhm.
see in this photograph. The next probably 2 to 3 months, the contractor said these bags will drain completely, and then the spoils will be brought to an area on their site plan called Field of Dreams.
Mhm.
So they're not going to be using this beach,
This year.
this year,
Mhm.
but they have a pool too. So it was pretty interesting to see these in action. Every now and then somebody would get on top of it and kind of hit them a little bit, and then they'd start seeping, flowing. But it was an interesting
Is that
interesting.
water in there?
Yes.
Yeah, it's kind of water and organic,
Mud.
yeah,
Stuff? You know.
stuff. Yeah.
And how does it get in there?
Gets pumped out through this
Through that machine?
yeah.
Okay, wow.
So you can see their silt fence really didn't work
Huh.
along the water's edge. But they have a turbidity curtain protecting the outlet. So so if you look at that photograph that you have on, I don't know what page it is, it's the second page of photographs. And
Yes.
that one, you can see the amount of sediment that's made its way back into that the beach actually got eroded into the water body from the
Oh, yes.
dirt bags. They're called dirt bags. And this the silt fence was not maintained. And I suspect that it probably wasn't towed in properly. They might have done better had they used wattles at that location instead instead of silt fence. But it's done. It's their water body. They've got the outlet, which is at the dam, which is protected by the turbidity curtain. So it is what it is. They just wrecked their own beach area. So they're going to have to, once they take the dirt bags out, they're going to have to reconfigure their sand beach. It looks pretty muddy too. So all that tarp putting down to protect the sand, well, it didn't protect it they should have put it all the way down to the water's edge, the tarp underneath they were going to put a tarp underneath those dirt bags. They should have put it all the way down to the water's edge, because then you wouldn't have had this erosion and siltation of the water
Who
body.
took these pictures, Dan?
Yeah.
Do you know who took these pictures?
I did.
Dan did.
Oh, okay.
Well, it'll be interesting to see if they were successful in stopping their weeds from coming in.
So did they call you out there for an inspection or?
We pinned down a time.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the person that had presented the application with us, Don Gagnon, he was down in Florida for a stretch and came back to town at the end of April. So we think we wound up on May 1st.
So that's something to remember next time, that photograph you've got there that you got showing on the screen. Had they taken the tarp that was underneath the dirt bags to protect this beach sand, had they carried it all the way down into the water and anchored it into the water, they wouldn't have had that beach erosion and that sand eroding in.
Would have gone over and into, yeah.
It would have just washed over the top of the
Yep,
tarp.
over the top, yep.
Yeah,
I see
and it would have
that, yeah.
protected their beach sand that's beyond the dirt bags.
Now their sand is in the lake and
Yep, so they're gonna have to come in and repair that. Had they just spent the money on a tarp, they would have been, which is much cheaper than doing what they're gonna have to do.
yep.
Thanks, Dan.
You're welcome.
Good pictures.
And let's see here. Kathleen has joined us. That gives us five members. We still have some vacancies for alternates.
Dan, can you revise the contact document?
Yes.
That gives everybody's phone
Yeah,
numbers and
thank you for the
contact
reminder.
information and electronically send us a copy?
Wonderful.
Dan, if you could wait a few days on that, I want to set up another email account. Cause
Okay.
I missed up on a few things this month, so, I want to, put a different email address that I could get notifications just for this.
Okay. Yeah, let me know when you pick the name, and I'll it's a quick file to edit, but with
I don't know how to get in touch with Kathleen, with Kate.
Yep.
What do you go by Kate or do you go by Kathy or?
Whatever you want. Kathleen, Kathy, Kate, Catherine, I've been all of the above. Usually it's Kathy.
Okay, Kathy. All right.
yeah, I'll send out a draft real quick, so we'll at least get Kathy on the roster, and Bill, when you have another one, we'll send out the final, or when you have your email address, we'll send out the final.
Yep.
And
Yep, okay.
so I'm down to, I think, 12 more business days left to do all the land use work. I've got a couple days off for PTO, some long weekends, a Thursday the 6th, I'm sorry, the Thursday the 5th, which is this Thursday, Monday the 9th, and then Wednesday the 18th. And then there's the Juneteenth holiday the day after that. So I've got a number of short weeks here.
Do you know who our consultant will be?
I don't have any fresh details at all.
Okay.
But my plan before they come into play is by in the last few days that I'm here, I'm going to prepare an agent report as if I were preparing an agent report for July of any of the activity. If I had any agent approvals, or if I've done any inspections or sent any violations, I'll have the July report before I leave. I'm also gonna file the DEP fee, their quarterly report that they require. It's the period ends on the 30th. I'm gonna have it all ready to go to send on the 30th. So it won't be one of those administrative things that gets lost in the shuffle and the transition.
Dan, are you leaving again?
Yeah, they're restructuring the land use and planner responsibilities. They're gonna streamline it to go with one firm to do it all. And
Woodstock? Just for Woodstock?
yeah, this firm, Tyche, they're called Tyche, Tyche, the Greek god of planning, I think is where they get that. They've filled in different capacities in Woodstock in the past. They're probably the number one go-to for small towns who don't need a necessarily full-time staff to do these activities. I think they work with a few dozen towns in the state as planners, as wetlands agents, as ZEOs. They most recently were the town's ZEO from April of 23 to April of 24. And in the past, they performed some planning services. Their principals, Mike D'Amato and John Koskowski, have also have a history in Woodstock. Mr. Koskowski was, I think, the town's first town planner in the late 90s and very early 2000s before Delia took over. So there is continuity in a sense that the guys that are taking over have performed work for the town going far back in the past, but they're remote mostly, and I believe the only word I have is that they'd have 2 days a week in the office, and I'm not sure which of their team would be in the office. But there is a lot of experience combined with on their roster. So I'm thinking any shortcomings or deficiencies that we have in wetlands or zoning or planning, they'll be able to delegate that to their team to solve.
But we'll still have a land use clerk to receive applications and so forth, permits. Yeah.
Yeah, Tracy's still going to be present. As far as I understand, I mean, I don't know what her personal plans are, but they're not removing her is not part of the personnel conversation. And she is really a glue in the office in terms of processing, getting stuff off the table, and triaging, prioritizing, collecting every little loose NDDH form or everything. We're always trying to, the payments we're trying to chase people down for. She's very effective at that. I know she's did a great job when Tyke was doing the CEO responsibilities of working with them. So I think there's going to be less disruption than other prior transitions, having her in the office and having a Tyke take over real quick. But I want to get more information. I was hoping that we could have Chan on one of these meetings to kind of discuss how it's all going to play out, but I think they're still working out some of the particulars.
Well, considering we don't have a budget, and tomorrow night is the town meeting for the revised budget, and the Tuesday after that is the vote for the new budget again. So we shall see where that goes.
Speaking of budget, if I can just interject here a minute. We are out of money. And from the way I read the financial, we're actually overdrawn. And we will need approval for our legal notices posting this month. So I've been in contact with Karen Fitzpatrick, and between her and Chandler, we're trying to work something out. We'll have to go to the Board of Finance for the funding for the legal notices.
Yeah, right
And
now.
do you read?
Right
you
now we
read the
have
budget that way.
Yeah, I think we're overdrawn by like $11 or $12. We have a few potential. I have 2 wetlands agent approvals that were delegated to me tonight, so that's gonna be a quick $40 right there. That we are short. I projected I gave Karen and Bill, and I think I sent this around to the other members too, what it costs for 1 notice, what it costs for 2 notice, what it cost recently for 5 notices. And I estimated, to be on the safe side, if there were to be 4 applications this month that needed noticing, that at 2 separate intervals, that $125 should sufficiently cover that. If we post them 2 at a time, sometimes we get them for $45. So the 2 that came in together, it's a quick $45. If others come in next week and I have to do 2 more wetlands agent approvals, that'll push us close to 100. If we have a third one or a special meeting or something, I just don't want to have to keep asking, so I overestimated at 125, and that's the numbers I gave to Bill and Karen as hypothetical notice spending. But we are obligated to post these, and Bill definitely made Chan and Karen aware that it's just part of the process that we are mandated to fulfill.
Oh man, May was National Wetlands Month. We could have had a bake sale.
Yeah,
Raise
yeah.
the extra funds that we needed. Darn it, we missed it.
That's what it might come to in 2026.
Oh, boy.
Oh man.
So anyways, there's work in process to try to cover our funds,
What
which I will
funds?
be dealing with. Our lack of funds, which I will be dealing with.
But also in my
Sorry, Dave.
my July report, I'll list out some of the things I've undertaken for continuity purposes. And I will be finding a way to have some redundancy on my files in case they don't work with my spreadsheet. Members of the commission will have my spreadsheet. Or
Well, we'll be talking to the consultant about that.
yeah. But
Well, here's
we've
the thing. The thing.
Hmm?
Go ahead, Dan. Go ahead, Dan.
Oh no, it's been a little bit of a research chore over the past few years to kind of get us all of this disparate information into a spreadsheet that is quickly accessible to kind of let us have a permit list. We did have a paper registry that goes pretty far back, so some of that's transposing. At the same time, we've also been trying to build back some of the files that were lost with a prior records disposal. And sometimes we find that online. I'm able to print those out and create a paper folder. So there's been an effort to recreate the record and catalog what we do have in a way that someone can just be plugged right in and understand what we're doing.
Dan, if you could have Tracy scan the paper log from way back. At one
Okay.
point in time when Tina LaJoy left, I had a copy because there was nobody in the office at all, and for a little while I was doing agendas and logging in applications. And that's really not, shouldn't be the job of a commission member. But I would like to, if she could scan that, that's going to be quite onerous only because you have to take the document apart and there's many pages and they're kind of ratty. They're old and they're falling apart. But I think we need to scan it now before you go. Have Tracy do that and then keep an electronic copy, send it out to, I would like to have a copy just to make sure that there's continuity.
Okay. No, I agree. It was for some tasks, it was a challenge to come into this and not have any kind of records to reference. And I think the Wetlands Commission agency is in a good place right now with at least what we do have left. I hope that they maintain the way we've been presenting this information on a meeting page with electronic documents mirroring what we have in the paper.
Don't worry about it. We'll deal with it when we get to it.
Perfect. But I'll be doing some inspections this week, and if anybody wants me to stop anywhere, I know Marla had a couple places that she wanted me to follow up on. I'll try to have a look and then present Tyke with a couple, where we've left off on things. Especially considering the 203 Crystal Pond Road, the Pollock subdivision, and I just don't want anybody to, I don't want there to be a gap. Gaps are hard to tackle, and if applications needed to be acted on, I don't want any liabilities or challenges in the transition. But that's all I have for you tonight. If anybody's got any questions.
Dan, I have one question.
Sure.
I brought to your attention some concerns I had about some activity on 197
Okay.
before it reaches 198.
Yeah, he's update on that. He is working with an engineering firm. I believe Richard Zulich was out to delineate the wetlands.
Okay.
So that will be Mr. Lee understands that a permit is likely going to be required, and engineered drawings are going to be a part of that process.
So just for the other commissioners, commission members, information. I drive on 197 to go to I-84, and just before you, about a half a mile, maybe not even a half a mile, quarter mile, before you get to the intersection with 198 on the south side of the road, that would be if you're heading away from Woodstock, on the left side of the road, I noticed that there was looked to be a road starting to be constructed, and it looked like it was heading towards perhaps a wetland or a water course. And I brought it to Dan's attention. And unfortunately, the wetlands map that's on the GIS is the wrong map. It's the National Wetlands Inventory map, which is not the state delineation of wetland soils. And unfortunately, that's what got looked at, and that doesn't show any wetlands in that area. But when you look at the soils drainage maps, it's a lot of wetlands in that area. So Dan contacted the owner, or the owner had been in contact with him. Either way, I asked him to look into it and see if he could get him to come to us before, because technically I think they've already done work in the upland review area, under the belief that they were exempt, that they didn't need to get any permits. So
Yeah.
we'll keep an eye on that.
And also on a side note, I don't know if Chan has reached out to you, Marla, about GIS.
Yep.
Yep.
I'm going to work with him on that. Once I have a meeting with him and the assessor, then I will.
Yeah.
I'll be dealing with that. I'll inform the commission as to what's going on. Right now, I've been asked to take a look at the mapping that the town has for the assessing purposes, and there are apparently a lot of discrepancies. And I've already started some communications with Paul Hopkins over at Thompson, because he has dealt with a lot of this stuff. And I'm pretty positive that AppGeo was the firm, I think, that did the original digitizing of our assessors maps from the air photos that they used to have. Because I'm pretty positive that I saw them when I first came to town 12, 13, 14 years ago. There was a roll of them, and you could actually look at the assessors maps on the printed out digitized version. And they don't know where those are right now. So it's a little complicated, but once I figure out what's going on, I'll let you guys all know. Yeah. Are we ready to move on?
Well, I just want to interject here, because I don't know what else we want to bring up, is that stay tuned for the July 7th meeting, because there are a lot of unknowns at the moment. We don't have anybody to drive the Zoom yet. We don't know the availability of the new wetlands agent. So I'm not sure whether we can do a Zoom meeting, or whether we might be worth having a in-person meeting just to acquaint ourselves with everybody.
Crystal can coordinate that, I believe.
Probably, but it's still something that we have to work through.
Yeah, remember that documents have to get scanned to be put into a digital format to then get posted on the website for public disclosures. And that's the problem, is how are we going to do that? So we'll see.
Yeah, I will be digitizing everything that comes in. I'm not going to leave any of that kind of work for Tyche. I could even build a template meeting page or tentative meeting page with those everything ready to go for July. I don't know if they're gonna jump right into that format necessarily. So as Bill said, we've got who's gonna drive the Zoom. It's kind of a huge question in this.
And Tracy's not capable of doing that, is she?
No.
No, she doesn't work with a web page.
No, she She can prepare the webpage similar, like we've worked together to prepare some of these before for planning and zoning. I'm a little bit more OCD and kind of the finer, points of it. But administering the Zoom meeting, it's she has a second job at night, and that would be a conflict with what she does. Um, so I know in the past, Crystal has administered some meetings, but I don't know if that is what she'd like to do ideally. I know Taiki certainly uses Zoom all day long, and I feel they would have the ability to be the host and manage a meeting. But we just have to tell them what we want and or how we've been doing it and what our expectations are. And I think they'll do what we ask them to do, but if we don't really ask for much, they're kind of gonna just give us the minimal.
So there's a tremendous amount of administrative effort that needs to be carried out, that needs to be described and defined for them so they can prepare.
Yeah, there's a lot going on under the hood.
So
Well-
the other thing is that keep an eye out, because I might have to cancel that first meeting because it's so close to the beginning of the month, the new person taking over. So it might be a wise idea to set up another meeting date, or just move everything to August. So just stay
Oof.
tuned.
Special meeting, Bill.
Is Amy?
That's
is Amy
possible,
gone?
but
Is Amy gone completely? I mean, is she?
Amy, I'm not sure, but I don't know that she could run a Zoom and do the minutes at the same time. So
Yeah, I think Amy's got a lot on her plate.
I think you've got two things. One is to run the Zoom meeting. The other is to develop documents that are to be posted that can be used during the Zoom meeting.
Right.
So
there
they're
has
two
to be
different things.
Administratively, the protocol has to be prepared so that they can anticipate somebody's got to process these documents for distribution.
Well, we're gonna have to see what happens.
Wait and see.
Wait and see.
yep.
Bill,
So I just wanted to bring that up.
Yep.
Good,
Go ahead, Dave.
good point.
Bill alluded to the next agenda item, our financial report. We are in a deficit, but we are working to make sure that our noticing requirements are fulfilled. It probably will require an ask from the finance board. We added some additional agenda items and documentation in the attachment section of the meeting page. Next in the operations, the draft Inland Wetlands and Watercourses Agency application form. Marla put some together. I don't know if everybody's had a chance to have a look at some of these or how in depth of discussion we want to get into those, but I can share them on the screen.
Why don't you just share the first page, the comprehensive first page? So let me explain. This is an application form that I set up when I was working in Thompson, working on their regulation revisions and setting up a new application form for them. And what it does is if you want to take you want to pull up the
one that says instructions.
no, draft application form, that's the base form.
So that's,
You got it highlighted.
Yep. Too high. Two more up.
oh, okay. First, oh no.
That's it.
That's it.
Yeah, okay.
You got to download it.
Yeah, is it up on your screen?
No,
Yeah, it's a.
I can screen share if you want.
Yeah, Marla, can you do that?
Hold on a second. I gotta click off this. I'm running a thumb drive in my PC, and now I'm gonna take it off my PC and put it onto my laptop, which is what I run from. And let me call it up. Hold on a second.
Well, we're not gonna have any money to print them anyway, right? So,
Oh, you'll have money to print them. They just come out of the printer. That's not a problem. All right. Now let me go back and see if I can screen share with you. All right, let me share screen. Can you see that?
Yep.
Yep.
Okay. So what I did is I took a look at all of the actual permits approvals, initial approvals that are required. This does not include transfers of permits or modifications of permits or extensions of permits. It just includes jurisdictional rulings, except for timber harvest, then timber harvest, then a wetlands agent approval, then a permit for an individual lot, and then a permit for a subdivision, because they have different amounts of money for the last three. So what I did is I figured out what information is required for every single application, regardless of the type.
Yep.
And so this is the basic information that you need to get from everybody. It's applicant's information, property information, owner information, and if they have an agent. And then on the second page is all the signatures that say they're giving us the right to enter onto the private property. The owner signs that, and then the applicant says that it's complete and correct, et cetera, et cetera. So this is the same form, or very close to the same form that Thompson is currently using. And what I did is I tried to make sure I put in all of the requirements for that the statute has available to us. So this would be the base form. And then depending on the type of application you wanted, you would attach a second form. And in there's a fee. So let's take, let me see, I'd have to pull up another one to screen share. So I have to stop. Let's look for, okay. Can I screen share? This is, how do I get back to screen sharing you? I have to stop screen sharing here. And then I start screen sharing. This is for a, no, that's not it.
We've got A, B, C, D, and E.
Right. That's the wrong one. Yeah, exactly. So if you pull up any one of those, you'll
Right.
see that I don't repeat the same information that's on the base form, but you get all the detailed information.
Okay.
So we're not ready to move forward with this. I present it to you only as an opportunity to make sure, to try to get all the information that we need. And that our regulations either require or the statute requires. There's some certifications that are in, how do I stop screen sharing here? Here, stop screen sharing. Okay. I'm sorry that I'm doing this to you. This is it. Okay, here's the second page for use permitted as of right for timber harvest. You'll notice it's got all the exact same information that we have on the current form. But it doesn't have all the detail about ownership and stuff, because that's on the base form. Okay, so this looks very similar to the current form that we currently use, except it doesn't have all of that information about where's the property and all that. That comes on the base form. All right. Are you getting the idea of what?
yeah, that makes a lot of sense, really. The only question that I would have about it, Marla, is what happens if the two forms, you fill out both of them?
Yep.
Is there any point at which they are going to be divided? So they're going to end up in the two different places and they're not, I mean, they always stay together?
They would have to come in together. So
Okay.
they've got kind of get stapled together. So here's the one for, share that one. Here's the one for, oh, wait a minute, that's the wrong one. Sorry, guys. Share.
I think Kathy, the permit number kind
It
of,
goes up,
it binds them together.
see, right there?
Okay,
That's the timber harvest. So, I did have another one up. I can't seem to see here we go. Share that one. All right. That's still a timber harvest. What am I doing? Oh, I'm sorry, guys.
Close
Let's
the
try that
timber
one.
harvest one. And
That's the
then
base
tap on-
form. Yeah,
well, but I think we get the idea that of
yeah,
what's
what I'm trying
coming.
to do.
And the second part would be, instead of saying timber harvest at the top, it would say
individual property.
Individual
or
property.
Whatever, yeah,
Right, right,
Yeah.
right. And so, I wonder why it's showing up. You did you get sent, you can pull them off the web, right?
Yeah,
So you
I've got
can,
Form A and,
Oh, good, okay.
they should all be there,
yeah,
Yep,
okay?
individual permit for a subdivision. Yeah, I call
Yep.
them up. Yeah.
Yep. So, anyways, take a look at it, and I'm thinking that ultimately we're gonna have to redo our regulations. Our fees are no good. There's a lot of disconnect between our regulations and the statute, and I had to do this under contract with Thompson. So I know a lot of the stuff that need to be changed right up the bat. So that's why when I was asked when we were doing the plan of conservation and development, that I thought it would take a year and a half. It's going to take me a little time to go through the current regs and figure out what are all the changes that need to be made to make them compliant with the statute. DEP has already reviewed the Thompson regs, and they've given me their comments back, what they don't like or were concerned about in the Thompson regs. So I know where the areas of concern are. Plus, they have a different set of subdivision regulations and zoning regulations that Woodstock doesn't have. And I had to tailor the regulations in Thompson to the planning and zoning regulations in Thompson. So I have to get to know all of the regulations, planning and zoning, to figure out how to change the inland wetlands regulations. And that's going to take me some time to go through that. And with that, Dan, I think it might be useful for me to go through the recommended changes to the zoning.
Yeah,
If you could pull
that's,
that up.
yeah.
So about a year ago, I offered to go through the zoning and subdivision regulations to see how wetlands were referenced and what changes needed to be made. And so I just did the zoning regs this time, and I found these areas that I think are missing or inaccurate and should be modified. So I've actually provided the language of where the pages on the current zoning regs. And so you can take a look at the current zoning regs and see what you think. We don't need to discuss it tonight, but there are some areas where they do need to change their regulations, particularly in how wetlands are flagged and delineated. They give it as an option. They can use the NRCS's soils data or a soil scientist data, and that's not good enough for us. We require a soil scientist to do the delineation. We don't take the delineation or the identification by NRCS as the gospel. Only when it comes to enforcement are we perhaps limited to that delineation or that identification. So when you have a chance, take a look at this, and we can put this on for another meeting to discuss. Like they didn't even have a definition for what a soil scientist was.
Yeah.
And they didn't have, you have to go look at the regs to see how these changes go into it. But down the road, I'm going to be asking that the commission consider sending a notification to the Planning and Zoning Commission requesting that they amend their regulations as requested by the agency in order to become
but when you
coordinate.
say take a look at the regs, you mean the zoning regs?
These are the zoning regs, and the next thing
Yeah.
I'm going to be looking at is the subdivision regs because
Yeah.
there are other statutory requirements for zoning, for subdivision regs that are different from zoning. It's like, for example, in zoning, if an application before the Planning and Zoning Commission in zoning is for a special permit, and there's wetlands that are going to be altered, they can't render their decision until the wetlands agency tells them what their opinion is and what permits are required or issue the permits. In subdivision statutes, all you have to have is wetlands on the property, not necessarily altering them, but on the property, and they have to apply at the same time to the Inland Wetlands Agency that they applied to the Planning and Zoning Commission. And the Planning and Zoning Commission shall take into consideration the comments by the Inland Wetlands Agency. So they don't, I don't know how they've got it written in the subdivision regs, but in the zoning regs, they miss the part about special permit decisions. So the language that I've added there is suggested adding there on page 82 is language that comes from the statute. That is a statutory language, and they don't have it in their regs, so they should. So those are the kinds of things that I was looking at.
Yeah.
And I guess, Dan, that's all I needed them to look at and think about. And then I guess the next thing on the agenda is the memorandum of understanding with Public Works. And I want to explain that because I drafted that also. So
Beaver, you.
I know. I don't have a job anymore, so this just kind of become my job, you know. I was talking with the chairman of the Inland Wetlands Agency in Ashford, and she had developed up a memorandum of understanding with their Public Works department to address all those kinds of activities that Public Works technically should be coming to the Wetlands Agency for approvals. Things like when they have to clean out a pipe that carries a water course, when they have to grade a road that's within 125 feet of a water course or 100 feet of a wetland, when they have to do various kinds of maintenance activities. And she had come up with a language that their Public Works director found acceptable. Now, so I took that and I said, well, let me tailor it to Woodstock, because I've dealt with Public Works a couple of times on the Payne Road case, and I've also got issues on Bull Hill Road. So I figured, okay, this would be a good way to try to identify how we will not require approvals, individual approvals for certain kinds of activities. This is not a general permit because the statute doesn't authorize general permits, according to what the lawyers have told us at the Kakiwik meetings. But it doesn't say anything about us saying, well, we're going to consider certain things non-regulated use under conservation of soil and water because they don't alter the natural indigenous character of the wetland and watercourse. So the activities that I identified in this memorandum of understanding are activities that I consider to be de minimis. They shouldn't be causing problems. The only place where I've had two issues that I haven't been able to clearly, well, in my mind, I've kind of cleared, but I think the commission needs to think about it, is I'm saying that if they have a pipe that collapses that's carrying a water course or is within a wetland, that they can replace that pipe in kind at the same inverts, but to what size? I mean, if it's a 54-inch pipe, I don't know that I want them to replace that without coming through determining how the sequence of construction is going to be for something like that. So I asked Jason Stratton, he's the current Public Works director, what size pipe. He said, well, it could be any size as a pipe. I said, well, it's got to be a certain, got to be something that maybe is carrying an intermittent water course, maybe just barely a permanent water course. So 36 inches was what we came up with a pipe that could be replaced if it was failing. and they needed to maintain it. So that was the one area that I changed for him to specifically identify a size, which is 36 inches. And then if you go down to emergencies, the only place where I'm still not positive of, say for example, we get a flood, and like what happened on Payne Road, where the culverts washed out and people couldn't get access. So the town came in and put in replaced the pipes, but then they added an extra pipe. This would not be necessarily be covered. It still would need a permit. But if you have an emergency where you have the public safety involved, they got to do whatever they got to do, but then they got to come back to the wetlands agency and get whatever approvals are needed for that repair work. So if a large culvert blows out, or a bridge blows out, or a road,
Basically, you're kind of like trying to set up a jurisdictional procedure that lets them understand that they've got some accountability and some procedural methods that will pay tribute to the wetlands.
The only thing that I didn't get, what I wasn't real clear is who declares an emergency. And the more I thought about it, the way I've written it, it says it's at DPW's discretion in consultation with the first selectman. And I thought, well, maybe it should be the first selectman that declares the emergency, because if there's any legal issues, it's the first selectman that's going to have to deal with it. But then I thought, well, you know what? This is only for 1 year. This memorandum of understanding only covers the next fiscal year, 25-26. And after that, it can be changed. It can be discarded to say, this isn't working for us. What I'm trying to do is get us into a process of getting Public Works to understand when they need to come to us, when it becomes important to come to us and let us know. I did include a section on reporting activities. So you can see for reporting emergencies, they do what they have to do and then they report back to us. But for all other things, they report to us on a quarterly basis. And I'm not sure whether we want to have that on a quarterly basis or just on an annual basis. This is like a first attempt at trying to say, okay, this is how we're going to operate together. You don't have to come to us with all this little stuff. You don't have to come to us for getting approvals to do immediate repair work. As long as they meet certain best management practices, which is on the second page. Dan, if you could roll down to the second page. And so the second page identifies how they need to operate and to protect the wetlands and water courses in order to be covered under the memorandum of understanding.
So I think there needs to be set up a metrics for what constitutes, because emergency is very broad. We have different kinds of emergencies.
Which is why I set this only up for a year, because if it's not working, it's only good for a year. It's not good any farther than a year, and then it has to be renewed. So if you find there's a problem, it's not working, then you change it then.
So it sunsets.
It sunsets, right.
Would there be any precedents that we could follow anywhere else in the state?
Only Ashford. Ashford is the only other one. And Dan has finally uploaded the FEMA maps to the inland wetlands web page portion under resources. So I now have a citation, a link for that, which that's what I would change to make this move forward. Do you guys feel comfortable with voting on something like this tonight, or do you need more time?
More time.
Okay.
I need to read it.
Okay. Then I'm going to ask that we put this on for next meeting's agenda.
Yeah, I mean, the concept certainly is good.
Yeah, it depends on what you want to vote on.
The concept is good. It's just, you got to have the content then that makes sense. Yeah.
So since people haven't read it, you can't vote on it. And what I'll do is I'll get that webpage citation in there and I'll send it out to all of you ahead of time. I'll just get that one edit. It'll still list it as draft. And if we can have it on the next agenda to talk about it in in detail?
Marla,
Are there any definitions for emergency?
No,
Okay,
I haven't found any yet. That's why I think the first
Oh.
selectman should determine it, because he's not gonna go willy-nilly. And if he does go willy-nilly, this MOU only lasts for a year and that's it.
yeah,
And it's only for replacing in kind. Well, emergencies, you could make modifications, but you still have to come back to the Wetlands Commission to get approvals. And that's when you'd have to do the after the fact. And the only way you're gonna know that is when you have something that comes up that goes through an emergency and you say, this isn't working. We gotta change this. But
Oh.
until then, I think we need to put something in place so that there's an understanding that we have as to what the responsibilities of public works are and that they understand it too.
have you spoken to Chan about this?
Yes, I have.
And
And I've
he's
spoken
open?
to Jason Stratton.
All right,
I've
good.
gotten his blessing. Jason Stratton is okay with this at this point in time, the way it's written. And the
does
only
it need,
place,
sorry to cut you off, Marla, does it need legal?
What are you doing?
I don't think it has to go through legal, but that's up to Bill. If he wants it to go through legal, it can go through legal. Cheryl, I believe, Cheryl Chase, who is the chair of the Ashford, I believe she went through her legal and their legal is the same as our legal.
Okay,
Sure.
But I know that we can't do general permits, so we can't do anything like that, which would be a sunset after a period of time. But we could do a memorandum of understanding. The other thing is that it is not signed by Public Works. It's only voted on by the commission to say, the commission is saying, this is how we're gonna look at things. As long as you do things this way, we're not gonna bother you. But if
Hmm.
you go out of this and do something different than what this is, then you're gonna have a problem with us. That's the way to, anyways, so I'll make that adjustment and send it out to you. Okay,
Okay,
and let's see, we discussed briefly the recommended changes to town zoning regulations. And we've had POCD kind of on our as the appendix on our agenda for a while. And the documentation that we've kind of carried over from meeting to meeting. I don't think we've really had any kind of change. Bill, is there been any new developments?
no, just Gene Pillow's, stuff there, that file. I just looked at that briefly tonight and, there's a comment there somewhere in one of the emails about her reviewing our stuff. And, I don't know how she wants to treat that.
Yeah. We don't really
So
have.
she might want to play with that too, so.
I don't have any new information on whether the contribution that Delia has worked on so far will carry over into things. And if the POCD committee will be drafting something, or will Tyke be drafting something, or are we fulfilling a contract with NECOG, after this June 30th date? I don't know if like it helps us to keep talking about it if they're gonna go pivot in a different direction.
well, to be honest with you, I think for the most part, I mean, my part is done.
Yeah,
I did what
Yep.
what we thought needed to be done. Now, once Jean Pillow gets into doing edits, I think we should have a chance to respond to her edits. But until she comes up with edits, there's really nothing that I see. I know, Bill, you're on the committee, so it's whatever the committee decides to do. So right now,
Yeah, well, Amy is pretty much satisfied with what we've presented already, But the fact that Gene wants to weigh in on some of that things could change things.
Mhm,
Um,
that's fine.
but the whole thing is up in the air with potentially Delia being not on it anymore. And I mean, we should be having another meeting this Thursday, so we'll see what comes up there.
All right.
So I think we're all set for what was on our agenda,
Mhm.
unless somebody else has anything else.
I'll
Citizens'
just make
comments.
one correction on the 2025 meeting dates. In this for the September meeting, September 8th is correct, but the holiday is actually September 1st, 2025, not 2024. So just make that minor correction.
Okay, I see it. Yeah, yeah.
Oh,
I'll put a fresher version up on online.
Time flies like an arrow and fruit
That's
flies like a
right.
banana.
What year is it?
Yeah.
oh.
So we don't have any citizens for comments. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank Dan for his work. I think you've been
Yeah.
outstanding for
Mhm.
us and very diligent and very proactive. And I don't know how you survived this long with the workload
Yeah.
from
It all comes out of the gray hair.
Yeah.
it.
So now you finally might have some time to write that ballad. The ballad of the inland wetlands agent.
Oh yeah. Oh, it can be a TV show sometimes.
So thank you
Thank you,
very
Dan,
much
for-
for
Thank
your,
you guys. It's been
Thank you
an
for
absolute
caring.
pleasure.
Thank you,
It's been a
Dan.
pleasure.
Yeah, thank you, Dan.
Happy to help.
your work has been outstanding and we're very sorry to be losing you.
It's bittersweet. Mixed feelings. Definitely mixed feelings.
Yep.
Well, you set a precedent and it's gonna be a hard act to follow, Dan.
Yeah.
Tyke's good. So yeah, I think if you are clear on what you want from them, I think they have the capacity with their resources to deliver on that. And just you gotta ask for it and keep them accountable. And
Yeah,
I think
Yep.
I think in the next remaining week time that we have left, if we can set up templates, that'd be great.
Templates for what?
Templates for the administrative duties and how that works. I mean, if they have something that they don't have to generate. If we have, say, look, this is what we've been doing, and you can pick it up and run with it.
I'm definitely going to outline this process of how we present and administer these meetings. I think it is very helpful to have the digital version of every paper file we have. So and I think their method of doing a lot of remote work, I think they're going to want to carry that on in some way. I like our format. I think our format kinds of runs with the checklist, and I'm gonna make my recommendation that they present in this sort of way since we're familiar to it.
We'll just have to school them on how they should do it,
Yeah, well,
because you made it up.
they're good.
You said-
They're gonna be good.
Yeah.
But definitely they're very responsive by email. They're
So
very easy to
it's-
send a letter.
it's gonna be the public that's gonna miss out though,
Yeah.
because you were there all the time providing help and
All
assistance.
right.
And the cost to the town may find that it's gonna be more costly for them to have a consultant do this work and have a happy public than to have an agent in the staff. So we shall see.
Doubt. No doubt.
Yeah.
Stay tuned for the budget.
Stay tuned.
Yep.
Hey, has anyone advised the Board of Selectmen to that effect?
For what?
What you just said.
What the costs are gonna be?
Yeah.
I'm only guessing at it because they have overhead. When you deal with a company, you not only have the salaries of the staff, but you have the overhead of the office. You got to pay for that. You don't have that when you have a town employee. Oh, you do have benefits package
Yeah.
that you
Yeah.
have to pay for too. And that's what, but private sector is going to cost a lot more than the public sector.
I believe you're right.
Yeah.
I just wish that could be conveyed to the decision makers.
And,
It
and
will
even,
be.
even if the financials are lower, Stuart, you know, they may learn as public complaints start piling in.
Right.
You know, if they're starting to get more and more complaints from the public, you know, that their public services aren't being cared for enough, you know, they may have to just learn the hard way, you know, learn from experience.
Unfortunately, they're all going to the school.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Take a look at the superintendent's salary. 12% increase they're
Wow.
proposing to $207,000.
Wow.
What?
Wow.
What? Yeah. Take a look at the budget. Go to the Board of
Wow.
Education web's page and look at their budget, the revised budget,
Wow. Yeah.
and then compare that to what other towns are getting for their schools that participate with the academy. Because we don't do a high school. Superintendent doesn't do a high school, only does the elementary and the middle school. So what are the other towns that are participating with the academy as their high school?
I'll look at it, but you said that is that all in 1 year? That's got to be over a period of 4 or 5 years, or
No,
Oh,
take a look at the budget.
because you know, Marla, you and I have been through the process with our jobs at the DEP, and you know, a lot of times our union would negotiate a contract for over 3 or 4 years. You know, so we might see a 2 or 3% raise per year over 4 years. Yeah. So.
Yeah, well, take a look.
Oh yeah! Wow.
We're all taxpayers. We all have a right to our opinions.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Jeez.
And with
Wow.
that, I think I'm done. It's
Yeah.
almost 10 o'clock.
Okay.
I move
Why
to
don't we
adjourn.
let our new member make the motion?
Okay.
to
I make a
adjourn?
motion that at 9:47 that we all go to bed and get a good night's rest.
So
That
you
we-
move
we
to
end the
adjourn?
meeting.
So you move to adjourn, Kathy?
Pardon?
Make a motion to adjourn.
Oh, let's do that instead. Okay, let's adjourn. I think we should adjourn. I make.
You
a-
have to move it though. You have to use the right words.
You have to
I
say,
move to adjourn.
I make a motion that we adjourn the meeting.
Yay!
I second that motion.
There you go,
Amen.
Bill.
Okay, we have,
Make the announcement.
we
I
have a motion.
oppose. I
by-
oppose. I'm having too much fun.
Well, wait a
No
minute. Wait for the vote.
discussion. No discussion.
Well,
We have a motion made by Kathy Barrick and
Yes.
seconded by Marla Butts to adjourn. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any abstains?
The motion is unanimous at 9:48 PM.
You're a glutton.
Thank you very
for
much,
punishment,
everyone.
Sue.
Have a good one,
Good
everybody.
Good month.
night.
Stay
Good night.
tuned.
Well
Good night.
well
Thank
done,
you, Dottie.
Kathy. Well done.
Thank you, Dottie.
Thank
Good
you.
night.
Night.